Today I thought I would make a video about a comment that I received on my community tab, and this comment was given a thumbs up by more than one of you, so I would like to address it in a video to hopefully help the commenter and those of you who share this same request. So Anne, you asked me, could you kindly explain how you stop overthinking? When I tell people how I can't sleep due to excessive thinking, they say, just don't think. Well, it's not that easy. I just can't shut off my brain. Even mundane tasks like brushing my teeth, doing dishes, eating takes long because of my indulgence in thinking. Please help. Okay, Anne, so this is a very good question, and I can speak to this very confidently because you are looking at a victim of excessive thinking syndrome, if you will, a sufferer, self-proclaimed, and still to this day, I often overthink. However, the difference now is that I have tools that I can use, tools like my mindfulness practice that I like to share on this channel, for instance, and that I would like to speak to in regards to this comment. So, you say that you can't stop overthinking. Well, first of all, I'll speak for myself, but I think you would agree. The problem or the issue in and of itself is not the excessive thinking. The suffering comes, the pain that you feel comes from you identifying with your thoughts and attaching yourself to the thought. So it's not the thinking itself that's causing a problem. Thinking is harmless. It's when we get attached and gripped by our thoughts that we get stuck and lost in our own minds. And why is that? You first have to ask yourself that question. That's what I did. I asked myself, why am I having this thought? Where is this thought coming from? And why is it so hard to either let go of, or it's upsetting me in this way, or it's causing me anxiety? All of the above. Let's see if I can gather my thoughts. A thought is a formation of a concept. A concept arises in the mind, and a thought is a mental ideation formed out of that concept or group of concepts, and we call that a thought or thoughts. The reason it's important to define that is because the thought is coming from the ego. It's always, think about your own thoughts, it's always a striving. So when I say the ego, I'm talking about the striving self, the wanting self, the ego. The ego wants to attach to something, to give itself meaning. That's what our egos do. We all have an ego, and the only way that the ego can feel important and validated and relevant is if it attaches to something like a thought or a concept or an opinion, a judgment. So either in the good or bad sense, the ego will be boosted or bruised depending on what kind of energy it's attaching itself to, or what kind of idea or thought it's attaching itself to. So the thought arises from the ego. And this is the desiring mind, the striving mind. Want. The ego wants things, striving. This whole mindfulness practice that I'm always talking about, the reason that it saves you from that torture of not only your excessive thinking, but also the grip of the ego and the futility of the ego in the end. You realize this when you learn this piece of information, is that you are not your thought. So don't fall into the trap of identifying yourself with your thought or attaching yourself to your thought. That's why it's problematic. That's why you're having such a difficulty with the excessive thinking. It's not the excessive thinking itself. It's that you are attaching yourself to the thought rather than recognizing that you are the silent witness having the thought. Because you are witnessing yourself having these excessive thoughts, right? So that must mean that you're separate from the thought, because you're recognizing it. You have that self-awareness that, okay, I'm having excessive thoughts. I can't sleep. I can't brush my teeth. I can't eat in peace. I'm having these thoughts. So that's good. That's step number one, that self-awareness. But what you must also recognize after that is that you are not your thoughts, that you are unbounded consciousness witnessing your thought. The key to awareness and awakening is that. That's the key, is recognizing that you are not your thought. You are the one having the thought. It's occurring. Once you find out this information, I know it sounds so simple, but many people go their whole entire lives without knowing this piece of valuable information that can liberate them and free them from their pain and suffering, because this knowing, this recognition and self-awareness frees you from that state of suffering, because you are not engaging in that thought cycle, the cycle of futility. That's what gets people trapped. That's what trapped me when I was addicted to negative thinking. The way I got out of that was exactly what I just explained, is I recognized that I am the silent witness having the thought. Therefore, I can stop having the thought. I can change the thought. I can practice any number of these mindfulness techniques, like meditation, like doing anything other than thinking, rather than get lost in my thought and identifying with that and grasping so tightly as if that's me. So I'm suffering and I'm in pain because I want this to be a certain way, I want that to be a certain way, I want this, I want that, I wish this, I wish that, I'm worried about this, I'm regretful about that. All of those thoughts have concepts attached to them that have nothing to do with the present moment right now. They have nothing to do with me. They have everything to do with concepts in my mind that I've formed around those thoughts. So that's the key, is recognizing that a thought is just a formation of an idea or a concept, and that you are separate from that concept. You manifested that concept in your mind, but you and that concept are not the same thing. That is why thoughts cause so much suffering and pain, and worry and anxiety and inability to sleep and rest and eat in peace, because you get caught up in inability to recognize that you are separate, that you are the one witnessing your thought. So that's the help I can offer you, because that is what helped me, is just that awakening of awareness that when my teachers taught me this piece of information, that has stayed with me all these years, because that piece of information can save your life, quite literally, knowing that. Because all the pain and suffering that comes from our thoughts is because we're gripping and we're grasping onto that thought as if it's us. So if that's a painful thought or a sad thought, like I said, something desiring, it's all derivative of the ego, because the ego is constantly striving, and the ego wants reaction, the ego wants attention and validation. So when we see something or we have something in our minds that we want, that we don't have, or that isn't quite right, or that's anxiety inducing in some way, or bothering us, or that we can't stop thinking about, it is always because of desire. It is always because of desire of some sort. The ego wants something. So what we can do is we can sit quietly in stillness. This is what I do. I sit quietly and I'm still with myself. I focus my attention on my breath. Why? Because my breath is present in me. I'm breathing. And that's something that's certain and guaranteed as long as I'm alive that I'm breathing. So it's something that's reliable, is what I'm trying to say. It's a reliable source of life in me. So I find my breath, I sit quietly with myself, and I start focusing my attention on that, my breath, because it connects me back to my body, and in that way it connects me back to right now, the present moment. And just like anew, I am without thought. I am of no mind. I am of no form. I am just the unbounded conscious awareness that is in me, that's always in me, the blissful state that I was born with. I access it in that way. And you can do this too. Anybody can do this. This is why I'm so passionate about meditation and mindfulness, is because this tool is accessible to every single person that is alive. I want people to wake that up in them, that energy, find it, because it is there within each and every one of us, which to me is a thrilling thing, and why I get so excited about it and teaching. I'm always hearing back from them that with this one little piece of information and tool that they can implement in their lives, that it has changed their life. So that tells me that it so very little is required, in fact, to make such a monumental difference in life. And that's a beautiful thing to me. I think that's such a beautiful thing. So I hope this helps you, Anne, and anyone else watching. Remember, when you have excessive thoughts, not to fall into the trap of identifying with the thought. Once you identify with the thought, that's where the suffering comes from, because you feel as if you cannot detach from that, and you feel intertwined with that thought. And especially if it's a negative thought, it can be very distressing indeed. And I don't want that for anybody, because I've been there, and it's not a pleasant realm to be in, to find oneself in. For that suffering to be alleviated, that is work that only you and each one of us can do for ourselves. Nobody can do that work for you. The good news is that it's simple. And I know you've heard me say it before, that the simplest things in life are not necessarily easy. Sometimes they're the most challenging. And this idea or prospect to some of you might seem like the most challenging thing, is to go within yourself and be still and quiet with yourself in the present moment and be of no mind. That might be a very scary potential project for you, but if it is, I challenge you to take that on and see what you can discover about yourself, see what you can wake up inside yourself and feel that freedom, because it is true freedom, and it's a peace that is inexplicable. So I won't try to describe it, because if you've experienced it, you know exactly what it feels like. And it's an unbounded awareness state that feels like nothing else, and it's always there for you. So find it and take it and keep practicing.